in that statutory. There's Gavin.
Just carry on, mate.
Yeah, but we've got.
You up here, just not here. My two isn't here.
You need people who can herd cats, mate. So we yeah, I know, but do we have either Siri or Gavin to present this paper?
No, we don't. Gavin's on leave, and
So you're going to do it.
I'm going to try.
Okay, rightio. So thank you and welcome back. We're on item 8, statutory advocacy update, and Liz is going to take us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as is customary, every second meeting we just present to you the particular matters, whether they're rezoning applications or consent applications that have been put forward to the territorial authorities and to which we've had the opportunity to submit on, and where we have, we've described what the purpose of our submission is and where we're at in the process. So a number of these have been fairly long-standing, and they often are, particularly when they're plan changes or certainly when they're appealed to the Environment Court. They can take months, if not years, to actually come off this list. So I don't think there's anything in particular that's new here. Obviously, the most recent is the application for a water conservation order, and we did get to cover that in quite some detail in a previous agenda item, so I'm not going to go back over that. So I'll just take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Liz? No questions. We have a mover and a seconder. Bailey and then Dick. Do you wish to speak? Do you wish to speak, Alan? All those in favour? Second favour? Against? The motion is carried. So we have item 9, which is resource management planning project updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
You
similar
doing
to
as
the
well?
most previous item, this again is a regular agenda item that comes through every second meeting, and it's just to give you an update on where we're at with the various plan changes that are in process, and any other matters that are of significance to the plan development process. So particularly look there at the over the page on the statutory acknowledgement of treaty settlements. So yes, again, I'm just happy to take questions.
Any questions? One, Tom?
It's actually not on one that's on here, but harkening back to the last conversation, the amended plan change 6 that we're exploring.
We're calling it 6.1 at the moment.
When would you imagine that might come? What might the timeline be?
The timing,
on that?
yeah, sure. So that will be covered off in a much fuller agenda item that's going to come back to this committee in November or December, and that will cover off the timeline. But in terms of urgency, if you like, we would need to have something notified prior to May of next year in order to be able to allow for the consents to continue under the old minimum flow regime. So it would be a fairly narrowly prescribed plan change and should not take long to actually prepare once the discussions have been held with all the key stakeholders.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Peter, then Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the outstanding water bodies plan change, Liz, I'm a little bit concerned that that work might cut across other work. For instance, if we came back with a report that said the upper Nararora was an outstanding water body, it seems to be cutting across the WCO tribunal's work. So I'm just interested in the timing of that.
Again, unfortunately, the planner working on this is on school holidays as well. So she's, I'm not familiar with the exact timing of that. I'd have to get back to you via Tom Skirman, sorry.
I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to think that the timeframes for reporting back and taking further actions will not interfere with other, plan change
Obviously,
processes
yes.
that we're
Yep.
involved in. That's, yeah.
Yep.
Leon.
Or at least they're consistent with them, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in regard to your the attachment 1 schedule, that's page 32, top thereof, and going to Regional Resource Management Plan Effectiveness Reporting, so that's a current project. Is there a scope of work around that in terms of the extent and coverage of the RMP? Is it particular or generic, the report? And then I've got a follow-up question to that.
It's prescribed, if you like, by the Resource Management Act itself. In terms of the actual scope of works for this particular review, I would suggest that that's something that needs to be brought back to this committee just for you to be satisfied with.
So you're saying that the project has commenced,
Yeah.
and a consultant has commenced,
Yeah.
but the scope is yet to be
No,
determined?
I'm not saying that, and I'm saying that the scope has been set out, and that's how we normally, employ a consultant once the scope has been worked through. All I'm saying is that if you've got a query about that,
Sure.
perhaps it would be appropriate for us to actually
Bring the scope
show
back.
it to this committee if there are any obvious omissions. I don't think there are, or any particular concerns that you may have. Those can be addressed early on rather than wait till the end.
Sure, yes, and I'd really appreciate receiving the scope, but in particular would like to know section 4 around advocacy and relationships with the local authorities particularly, and an obviously reference to Havelock North Water and our other consenting arrangements.
Thank you. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Same page as what Councillor Curtin was on, but the one down, National Environmental Standard for Plantation Forestry. I understand it's well known in the industry and by the farm foresters and such. Can we be confident that everyone that should know about the introduction of the National Environmental Standards are actually aware of them?
No, I don't think we can be 100% confident, but it is something that we're working on because we are aware that it's there's a relatively short implementation timeframe, 1st of May next year. So there's quite a lot of work going on at a national level in terms of providing guidance and things, and there's also a fair bit of work going on locally as well through our consents team to ensure that people are aware of both the standards themselves and the potential implications of them. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes?
Yeah,
Sorry, I have
through the
trouble seeing
chair.
down here, so I need a signal.
Okay, just through the chair, in regards to the standards that's set for the forestry contractors, are there any provisions to monitor those particular contractors with council in regards to what they do and what they leave behind? Because up in our area, up along the Mohaka, Te Harato, Tarawera, it's some quite big blocks there, and we're not happy with what the standard of stuff that's left behind. The problem is it all gets down into our estuaries and starts blocking some of our rivers, which is the 3 to 4 rivers that we've got running through there. So we just wanted to know if there's any sort of a safety standards or types of standards that the council would put in place in regards for these contractors doing their work.
So certainly Corona, the whole idea of introducing national standards is to improve the environmental effects of forestry activities. When it comes to health and safety, that's another piece of legislation that we don't have responsibility for. But the intent of these standards is to address exactly the type of issues that you've been just describing.
Great. We've been waiting for this for a long time.
Just on that point, Chair, do you think it'd be worthwhile having James Perry, say, coming and giving us a presentation about the implementation of the National Environmental Standards for Forestry? Because he'd be the guy, and I assume, that knows most about it, just so that we're updated.
Can I ask, Corona, if is there one particular company?
At the moment, there's 2 or 3 companies that are working up in our area. Panpac is one of the large areas, but they do contracts. They put contracts out, but they're the main players within our areas. There's also another company, it's an American company, Canadian, that are operating up in our areas as well. Rainier as well.
Okay, thanks for that. Do we have a mover for this paper? Peter, you want a question? Sorry, Uppy.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, to Liz, the last item on the schedule there on page, or the last item on that schedule under attachment 1, the list of the statutory acknowledgements of treaty settlements. I just noticed that Tato Tato o Te Wairua is not amongst that list. Should I leave the table?
I'll move it.
So I think the probably the reason for that is that was a current as at the 31st of January. So the list has not been updated, or should I say the potentially the online mapping has not yet been updated to reflect the Tato Tato settlement. But it will be.
We do know you're here.
We're not on the island.
Mana Harui's not on there.
And but your legislation hasn't passed yet, has it? No, so that's why. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Liz.
Just one minor query in relation to that list. If all of those iwi have interests within the region of the regional council, who is representing Rongawhakaata, Ngāti Manuhiri, Ngāti Manawa, Ngāti Whare, Ngai Tā Manuhiri? Who's representing them at this table?
Your relation?
He represents all of those. They're not on this list, but just the query. Just how did they arrive at that?
Yeah, good
Yeah.
question. I could give it an answer if you like.
They've just got
Anyone
very
next?
small holdings, I understand.
So at the outset, when this, when the Regional Planning Committee was being established, the Minister of Treaty Settlements, Chris Finlayson, he made a call on which had the, if you like, the interests within Hawke's Bay region, the boundaries of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. We are always kept informed of those other ones, and we have had some contact and are continuing to try and have some contact with those, particularly down Dannyburg Way and up north towards Gisborne as well. And I want to discuss this perhaps a little bit later when we talk about general business, and I think there's a question around the scope in terms of reference for the Regional Planning Committee, but about the broader relationship that this council needs to have with the PSGEs, and that will include those other PSGEs who aren't necessarily represented around this table.
Just a question, Liz, in regard to Ngāti Manawa and Ngāti Whare. Surely they're in the Bay of Plenty area?
Yeah, largely. And we have a small part of Rangitikei in our region, so there is some overlap, but that's why it's reasonably insignificant in terms of the land area.
Okay, do we have someone to move the paper? Peter, second, Toro. Do you wish to speak? Does anyone wish to speak? Otherwise, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Righto, minor items. Now, Tom, perhaps you could do your one first, the seismic testing.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to speak on your behalf on this issue. Just simply to note that a couple of days ago, there was a release of some science published in Nature magazine, which is a premier science journal for biological sciences, that seismic testing has a quite harmful impact on zooplankton, which is basically the bottom of the food chain that all marine life feeds on. And most of the work done to date in around the impacts of seismic testing have focused on whales and other marine mammals and sort of the direct effect on those creatures. But what this new science is saying is that basically this blasting wipes out the zooplankton and in the zones where it's happening to a very substantial degree, and it's just another consequence that had not, really earlier been recognized about this. So one more reason for those of us who are not keen on oil and gas development to be concerned.
Thank you, Tom. Now, just so we get the processes right, with these businesses not on the agenda, it's an opportunity for everyone to bring to the table something they just want to say. It's not up for discussion, so we're not going to have long discussions. It's just someone presents their point of view, and if you want to do that, then let us know at the beginning, because it's a really good opportunity for us to just share the things that we've been doing or research such as Tom has been doing on that. So the second one, Neil, Ahuriri Estuary.
Yes.
And the Statutory Board.
Mr. Chair, obviously there's a very substantial crisis of confidence in terms of our shell food, and particularly thinking that it may be in association with the Ahuriri Estuary, although the evidence is not quite there. So I've got a couple of questions or requests, perhaps staff to come back to us. So we're making comment, etc., based on some sound evidence, and I'm particularly interested to know what the dialogue is between our staff in the working party around our consents, particularly the wastewater consent with Napier City, what the discussions have been with the Ministry of Health and the District Health Board, and perhaps a paper coming back to us at the soonest opportunity that examines these issues. Is there room for comment, Mr. Chair, from staff around this issue, if there's any information known?
No, I'd rather not. Otherwise, we'll get
okay.
into.
Well, that's fine. So I wonder whether we
on
could
the table.
look at that. But it's what's that?
He's good at that.
Rules are there. Rules are there to be broken, Councillor.
100% with you, Nick.
Particularly when you've got such a hefty issue as this
Was it,
to deal
which
with.
was urgent.
Which was urgent and not minor.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Neil. And I think it is an urgent issue, and we're really glad we've got you at the front dealing with this. Coastal hazards, Peter. Just before we do, are you okay to do a quick update on Tutera too? Just a 2-minute one? Yeah. Think about what you're going to say. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. I've been chairing a joint committee of the 3 councils for the past nearly 3 years now, which has been looking at the area from Cape Kidnappers to Tongoyo, and developing a 100-year strategy for how we're going to deal with the impact of sea level rise caused by global warming. What we've basically done is to identify the hazards. In other words, when sea level rises, looking 100 years ahead, what's going to be impacted, so what's at risk, and what's the cost of those things. Then we divided the coast. We developed a framework for responding to it. We broke the coast into 2 pieces, Port North, Port South. We've identified priority units within those 2 cells, and we've developed up to 6 100-year pathway options for each of those units. They've been scored by the panel, which is made up of local communities who are affected by this. They have scored it, but now we're about to put the cost of their preferred options on the table and see if that changes what their preferred options or pathways will be. Prior to taking that step, we've got workshops organised with Napier Council and Hastings Council so that we can get their agreement on the costings and what will be the split between public and private costs for all of this. And it's intended that we'll put those back to the panels. The panels will determine their preferred option taking into account costs. They will then make recommendations back to the three councils, and we're hoping that we'll have the process completed by the end of this year.
Thank you, Peter. Whakakī was the next one.
Yep.
I was going to do it, Fenton, but would you like to just report on our visit to Whakakī and the events there?
So, thank you, Chair. I get where you're coming from now. I was wondering where you were going, but we haven't talked to this committee about what's happened. That's correct. Yeah. Okay. So there's been an ongoing issue at Whakakī with the level of the lake and the farming practices that happen around it, including orcharding and multiple Māori-owned land that is farmed at the wider end of the lagoon. It's quite a big catchment. It fills up quite quickly with water, and it also dries out quite quickly if you let it go. So it's always been a tension about getting an acceptable level, managing and maintaining that level, and keeping the ecological health of the lake such as it is in a degraded state, but albeit at a level of water, if you like, that sustains life, etc. To me, it's a great example of economy bashing head-on into environment, and the irony is both ends of the lake are two distinct hapu who basically are, in some instances, one, but there's always a challenge between the Iwitia marae and Whakakī marae over what's an acceptable level. And I can say this because I don't think she's got an option to answer, but I think one of Liz's first jobs when she came here many years ago was to try and determine through a planning process what the level of the lake should be. And that's, Liz has been here, and she's in her second decade here now, so that sort of gives you an idea of how contentious and how long-term this discussion has been. We had a breakthrough the other day insofar as if we can determine, well, two breakthroughs. One is we had was successful with some Ministry for the Environment funding to partner the hotspot rate increase that we put in this last annual plan to give us opportunities to fix the catchment, try and future-proof it for generations going forward, and set about in a determined manner to fix the health of the lake. Part of that funding enables us to put in if you like, a man-made or mechanical means of maintaining an absolute minimum level in that lake, which may be in the form of a weir. I mean, there's engineering work going on at the moment. But the key breakthrough was agreement from the trustees of the Lake Trust to do that piece of work. And as I've said before, and I'd say that's why Rex has asked me to say this, I thank the Chair for coming up with James, our Chief Executive, and helping broker that breakthrough in the discussion, which, while the meeting only took a couple of hours, I mean, it's taken a few years to get to this point. So going forward, the aim is to make sure that there is always a minimum flow, a minimum level in that lake, and the stop banking that happens at the farming end of the lake will be, and those guys are, all over this now. I met with one of the trustees the other day, just by chance in town. We spoke for about 40 minutes on it. So they're looking to re-establish their stop banking at their end, so they have some security of tenure for their land that's not going to be flooded, and coupled with the piece of work that will happen to maintain a minimum flow, which then gives us an opportunity to let go at a maximum flow or level. Finally, we're in a conversation that has an end point, in the not too distant future, and we have some funding to get the job done. So they're also talking about taking part of their farmland, if you like, and putting it into Manuka as one option to make sure they still get some income off that part of the land, but they're not degrading it with livestock, in this case generally cattle. And the trust can still deliver. This is the irony of the whole thing. The trust that runs the farming operation delivers a dividend to the whakakī end, to the trustees who manage the lake level. Long and the short of it, we've had a breakthrough. It's been a fantastic end to a long discussion. We've got a little way to go yet, but the parties are willing, and there's a great collaborative feel around it all of a sudden. So pretty excited about what's happening up there.
I'll talk about Pokawa, but do you want to say something about Tūtera?
Yeah, just to say that the council and the Mangahuru Tangatu Trust continue to work really well on in partnership on the Tūtera Mana iwi project. It's all seems to be going according to plan, which is really cool to be involved with. But just a couple of weeks ago, we put an air curtain into the little lake Whakapiro as a test to see if the new technology was going to be more effective than the old air curtain that was put into Tūtera, I think back in the 70s or 80s, some time ago anyway. Just to let everyone know that Unison was very kind enough to donate the cost of installing the power and to get that air curtain put in, so that was very nice of them. The trust has also gone on and cleared a whole lot of trees around the roadside on the lake as well to improve the vista, which I've had a lot of positive feedback about that. People have noticed that very much so.
Process has begun. Pokawa, Debbie, would you like to report on our meeting in Pokawa? No, it's your ruhi, mate. Oh, no, I will then. So Pokawa Lake is very similar to Whakakī in many ways, as all these things are, and the essence is that the wetlands have gone, and now we're challenged with these lakes that are standalone. We had a delegation from Te Hauki Marae who came to see us, and they were really concerned about the management of the lake and the management of the area. One of the things that they said to us, which greatly impressed us and certainly greatly impressed the local farmers, was that from their perspective, the Brownrigg family had been there for well over 100 years. Their great-grandfather settled it, and they regarded the Brownriggs as tangata whenua, and that no solution would be a good solution without them being involved. It's also significant that they're by far the biggest farmers there. So James and I and Debbie and Mike trotted up to see the Brownriggs, and we had an exceptionally good meeting where we basically said to them, you know, you need to get with your community and you need to solve this issue. Use our science, use all the resources that is available in the Regional Council, which are substantial in terms of intellect. But this decision needs to come from the community, which is you and the tangata whenua across the road. They agreed to that, and I guess that's the essence of my belief structure, really, that we just do not have the resources alone here to solve all these problems. Unless the community gets in behind these challenges, we'll never be able to cope. And you'll never have sustainable solutions either unless the community gets behind. So that was a really good meeting. It's exactly the same in Whakakī as in relationship to the economics. Most of the Maori land which surrounds the lake, which is all Maori land, is leased by the Brownriggs, so there's substantial income going to the community. So as a community, they need to do a deal, and they need to get together, and they need to come back to us and say, this is what we think is best, and then, of course, it's up to this committee to decide whether they've done a good job or not, and hopefully they have. So, yeah, good meeting with Pokawa Lake. So The last thing was terms of reference, and I am actually going to break protocol here because Uppy wants to talk to this, and I'll allow Liz to answer. And this is our last one. This our last.
No, they don't call for competencies and GPs.
Oh, blimey! I didn't even understand that one. Okay, we'll do Uppy now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is really just a signal to our to our officers around the terms of reference for the tangata whenua representatives here on the RPC, given the developing nature of our relationship and the way that this board works together. The founding document, the term of reference, helps guide and direct the way that we'll work together. There's been some significant changes at the 11th hour, and it's sort of disappeared off the radar. So I know it's been a piece of work that's been in process for a number of years, and this is not meant to be a criticism towards anyone, but just rather that I would like to see that maintain a level of priority with regards to reaching a conclusion. And perhaps there might be a member of the staff who would be able to give us an indicator on when we can see this back on the agenda.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a really important topic so I appreciate the opportunity to actually talk to this one. In terms of a couple of things, the terms of reference, there have been some difficulties getting agreement around some of the provisions in the terms of reference, and a reminder that we need to have unanimous agreement on any terms of reference. I think thanks to Toro, I think we are well down the track to resolving one of them, which will be around remuneration, and he has suggested to the Chair and the Chief Executive and myself put forward the name of a person who could look at the remuneration for tangata whenua representatives, and so we've got that work underway, and I think that will have a successful outcome, or at least it will clarify or provide some certainty around the terms of reference. Probably the other more broad issue is really around scope of this committee, and there's some quite clear views on both sides, if you like, of this, and from a council perspective, we've been looking at it in terms of the Regional Planning Committee Act, so really around the legislation. And for tangata whenua, it's been, they've expressed the concern that it probably doesn't deal with all the issues that they have in relation to what council does. And it's true that it doesn't, and it was never intended to. So we've been back and had a look at the whole genesis of this committee. And one of the things that stood out was that at the very beginning, before the committee even had its first meeting, we had acknowledged that the committee should focus around Regional Resource Management Act planning, and that at a higher governance level, there should be strong relationships between this council and the post-settlement governance entities themselves, providing an opportunity for both parties to explore all manner of concerns on a regular basis. And we realised really that we've dropped the ball on that, and so what we have started doing is to reinstate those meetings. And to date, the chairman has met with and James have met with Mana Ahariri, have met with Tato Awairoa, and have met with Ngāi Tūhoi. There are dates just to be confirmed for Ngāti Pahawera and Mangahauru Tangetu Trust later this year, and early next year the remaining representatives around the table. Now the idea is that those meetings become regular, i.e. probably every 6 months, twice a year, and they provide the opportunity for areas of concern that are outside the scope of this of the Regional Planning Committee to be discussed face to face between council and post-settlement governance entity, and we're looking forward to being able to formalise that, and hope that may also address probably one of the other lingering issues around the terms of reference, which is around the scope of this committee. So this committee will continue its very important but focused work around the Resource Management Act and regional planning policy development and the broader issues will come back to the governance entities themselves and really be pitched where there should be governance to governance.
Thank you very much, Liz. That was excellent. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Uppy. No, we had that. Oh, okay. You got the complicated one. Is it complicated? What's he got? Toro.
He wants to say that he's lost his phone.
Sorry, I just wanted an update in terms of what's happening in terms of some identification of core competencies for councillors in terms of Māori perspectives, and also what progress is being made in terms of staff in that same area.
Do you want Liz to quickly comment on that? It's pretty.
So, like, as a tangata whenua representative, I come to this table, I'm expected to know something about Western Ways, Resource Management Act, all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, councillors are lacking in some of the understanding about our tikanga, etc. Like, I recall a meeting about 3 meetings ago when there were very few councillors who understood what te mana or te wai was and all that kind of stuff. So it's really about us all ending up on the same page, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, well, I'll comment on that. I think it's a very good point. We need to up our game on understanding issues around marriedom, and I certainly do, and we probably all do. So we will. You'll advise us how we do that later. Okay, Mike. He's been flicking it on and off.
Yeah. So the council's GIS specialist asked me if he could put this for you. The council would, I'd have to read this because when he was talking to me, it's just about as jumbled as this. The council are looking to identify and understand the aspirations of these post-PSGEs and within the realm of mapping, GIS mapping. And so he's offering his services either to present a paper and or to come along to your meeting and give a 10-minute cordial about GIS mapping. So that's at any charges for that you can pay to me directly, but his are free. So what I'll get him to do is to write to each of your groups. Kia runga I tēnei kaupapa. Nea?
There we are. Oh, well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this meeting. I think it was a really good meeting. We canvassed a lot of issues, and what I would say to our tenant whenua, if you've got anything that you think you can bring to the committee that councillors will be updated by or even find interesting, I think that's a really good part of our meeting. So think about that for the next time. Not all the items are going to be on the agenda. Karaina, could you finish our meeting, please?
Ka koe te kororoi ho.
Me noi tātou. I hokaru mātou ki a koe I tēnei ahi. Ke rongi te whakamoi meti mo te pai o enei tūmō mo kōrero mai mātou. No rei te aki mai e hoki ki o mātou, kaina ki o mātou whānau, ko enei mea ka pātai ke runga te ingoa. I hukarau ake. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you all. Little cotton,